Cowboys, Vikings. It truly does not get any bigger than that. 6-3 versus 8-1. Dak Prescott versus Kirk Cousins, two of the winningest quarterbacks over the last 5 years. But here's what I found interesting. Only one quarterback gets the benefit of the doubt. And the other quarterback, well, he just gets doubt. Right. Think about it. Dak Prescott's best season last year. Oh, he balled. Boy, he balled. 4,500 yards, 37 touchdowns, 104 passer rating. That was Dak's best season. But you realize that was just Kirk's last season. Ooh. See, Kirk Cousins does not get enough respect, ladies and gentlemen. Kirk Cousins, his last season, 4,200 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 picks, passer rating nearly identical. Dak's best season was just another season for Kirk Cousins. See, now I also think about what happens in the playoffs. What happens versus playoff teams? You've got to realize that because these are two playoff teams. Well, Dak Prescott, since 2019, he's 4-15. Kirk Cousins, since 2019, he's 8-18. So the gap is not as wide as you think. One quarterback, he just gets doubt. Another quarterback, he gets the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. David Helman, I'm coming to you. You were in Dallas when Dak Prescott was drafted. You've watched a lot of Dak. You've watched a lot of Kirk. The real question is this. Who is the better quarterback? Because they got a huge game this weekend.
It's Dak Prescott. The beauty of it is that they get to play on Sunday and settle this.
Yes, they do.
And it's the whole thing with the Vikings. Like, go earn some respect. They're in the process of doing it. But when you're talking about what they've accomplished to this point in their career, I go Dak every single time. And, I mean, I can just pull up numbers that back me up. Kirk is a very good statistical quarterback. Like, his numbers are good. He was the NFL completion percentage leader in 2015. He can play quarterback. It's about what have you accomplished. I mean, I can just go down the list here. Dak's, and this is a 3:30 game, right, Joy? It's a game that a lot of people are going to be watching. This isn't noon, Kirk.
Cowboys play in quite a few times.
This ain't noon, Kirk.
Yeah.
Dak's record in primetime is 18-10.
18.
Cousins' record in primetime is 10-18. How about this? Okay, playoff teams. Another telling metric people talk about all the time. What do you do against a good team? What do you do against a team with a winning record? I said this yesterday. Most quarterbacks have a losing record against teams with a winning record. It's hard to beat those teams. Dak is 18-24.
His career?
In his career.
Yes, sir.
It's not a great mark. Kirk's record is 10-40.
10-40?
It's 10-40.
I was going to laugh
As
like
a starting
that.
quarterback.
It's 10-40. I mean, I can go on and on. There's head-to-head. These guys shared a division for a long time. Kirk went 0-4 against Dak when he was in Washington. He did beat him in 2019. That's fair. Actually, the Vikings and Cowboys have played 4 years in a row. Got the best of Dak in 2019. This will be the 4th year in a row they've played. Beat him in 2019. He's 1-4 against Dak all time. So, I mean, head-to-head speaks volumes for me. And the funny thing for me is they played in 2020, 2021. Dak missed both of those games. Kirk still lost to Andy Dalton and to Cooper Rush. So, I mean, just like when you're talking about accomplishing things, they got the same number of playoff wins. Kirk has been a starting quarterback in the league for longer. I don't know. Like, I mean, where do you want to go with this? Because if you're just talking statistics, Kirk can throw the football. It's just about like what have you accomplished and who do you feel better about with the game on the line?
Dave, if I don't know if Andy Dalton and Cooper Rush having beat Kirk helps or hurts your argument. Meaning being the Cowboys are beating Kirk Cousins without Dak Prescott, so is it actually Dak Prescott that's getting it done? But the real thing I have is focusing more on what have you done for me lately. I think about Kirk Cousins in Washington, much different player. Now, to Dave's point. In Washington, Kirk led the NFL in completion percentage. Okay. Kirk has also not led the NFL, but Kirk has had a 70% completion percentage three times Dak Prescott has not. I do believe Kirk Cousins is as good, if not a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. Shady, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I like Kirk a lot better. I think Dak is good, but I think Kirk is a lot better. You talk about this wins and losses, right? Joey always talks about the regular season doesn't matter. Aaron Rodgers is the greatest regular season quarterback of all time. But the playoffs, that's what counts, right? So, I mean, Kirk's 1-2 in the playoffs, and Dak is 1-3. So let's take them games out of it. Let's go to the stats. One guy has more Pro Bowls, has more yards, has more touchdowns. One guy has less, and one guy has played with better talent. Hall of Fame players, Ring of Honor players, where Kirk hasn't. So when I look at the game and I watch him play, I love when I see Kirk Cousins. When I see Dak, it's like, okay, Now, granted, I will say this. They are in the same boat.
Yeah,
I think they are so similar. I think, like, Dak and Kirk could hang out, and you could switch jerseys and switch.
You wouldn't know who it is.
So they're very similar. I just would take Kirk before I would take Dak. I like the guy that throws the ball better.
The guy that throws the ball better, the guy that's
more stats, more yards, more
the guy that's got 100 picks in 137
more
career
Pro Bowls,
games.
more stats, more yards, more touchdowns. I'll take that guy.
Been to a lot of Pro Bowls. I don't know.
Picks in 137 career games.
Joy Taylor.
And the last part is I'm sorry,
you got one
the
more
last
part.
one. The difference is between the two, and why I give Kirk the edge is because I feel like when Dak came to the Cowboys and they made him the starter, like they rallied behind Dak. He's our guy. Jerry was the first one. I love Dak, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where Kirk, he was always that quarterback where he was like, we like him, but we don't love him. We're not going to gravitate to him. We're not going to make him the face. We're not going to add pieces to him. They never did that. He was like always a bridge quarterback. I feel like now with Minnesota, where he's 8-1 and Dak is 2-2, which that matters, this year matters, they're kind of like making him the focal point and going through him. So that's the biggest difference between the two.
Yeah, I think this year will be either the biggest validation of Kirk Cousins or the biggest indictment of Kirk Cousins. You can't have Justin Jefferson out there on the field playing the way he's playing and not have any success in the postseason. If you really like that. Now, I like Kirk Cousins more than most. One, Kirk knows how to make money.
Get paid.
That man plays the game better than anyone I've maybe ever seen it for being a guy who is very similar in talent to Dak Prescott. Kirk Cousins is not a spectacular quarterback, but that doesn't make him a bum either.
Not at all.
Now, I go with Dak because of the main thing that Dave just mentioned. Dak is more of a winner than Kirk Cousins. And you can talk about the talent that he's had or the division that he's been in and all these other excuses. You think quarterback's a win-loss statistic, then Dak's a better winner. Yeah. That's just what it is. And Dak pretty much only plays in primetime games. True. And he wins a lot of them. The 10-40 statistic, the reason I laughed the way that it is, because I didn't know it was that bad. I mean, no, I knew it was bad, obviously. This is why it's very hard for me to put any kind of faith in the Vikings. I didn't know it was that bad.
Some of that is when he was on some bad Washington teams, but the numbers speak for themselves.
Either
after
it
a while.
is a winner, a quarterback stat, or it's not. I think there's more nuance to it than that, of course, because as you just mentioned, maybe you're on bad teams, maybe everyone's injured. Who knows? But if we're going to compare the two with just those statistics, you've got to go Dak. But I'm with you. I think they're very similar quarterbacks. They're very similar. It's the primetime thing that always gives me pause. But where I will give Kirk a lot of credit outside of making money is what Washington has been since Kirk Cousins left, because they played that whole franchise tag game with him and they didn't want to commit to him, and he's not a long-term quarterback. Since Kirk Cousins has left Washington, they have had Alex Smith, Taylor Heineke, Dwayne Haskins, Carson Wentz, Kyle Allen, Josh Johnson, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Colt McCoy, Garrett Gilbert, and Mark Sanchez.
Mark went there?
Yeah. Start games since Kirk Cousins left. And they have a 29-46 record. So where you leave and how it is when you're gone matters as well. And that's where I have to give Kirk a nod, is that he would have been, Washington would have been better keeping him and paying him rather than playing that game. And that dude knows how to make some money.
Do you factor like the team, bad teams or good teams, or you don't care about that? Just wins or losses?
No, I think we should, but we can't pick and choose. We can't make wins and losses a quarterback stat for one quarterback and then not for another, because there is nuance to it.
Yeah,
but
Dak played on there.
you either got to do it or you don't.
I think wins and losses are a quarterback stat, and I think the law of averages will average itself out. Right. Kirk Cousins is a winning quarterback. The biggest knock on Kirk Cousins is the primetime game knock.
Yeah.
Biggest knock, and rightfully so.
It's a big knock.
But it's actually a meaningless knock the more I thought about it. Here's why. Primetime games, based on the statistic, games that start at 8 p.m. Eastern or later. Those are primetime games.
Yeah.
But y'all do realize you can play every playoff game and the first half of the Super Bowl not in primetime. The NFC Championship game last year wasn't in primetime. The Super Bowl kicked off at 6:30. Not in prime.
You know damn well that's not what that means.
He doesn't lose his powers after dark.
Yeah,
that's not what we're talking about here.
But statistically, that's what you're talking about.
No,
so
we're not.
Who do you play in prime time?
I'm saying this.
Who do you play in prime time?
The 10-40 stat, Joy, is based upon the 8 p.m. primetime metric. So if you want to tell me that Kirk isn't good against good teams, okay, we can have that conversation.
So what, Kirk needs LASIK?
No, I'm saying I don't subscribe to the primetime metric. I subscribe more to the playoff team metric.
Yeah, I care about that.
That to me means more than the primetime metric.
Okay,
but who more often than not? Who are you playing in prime time? The networks set the primetime games.
Some of it's divisional games. Some of it's guys that get traded.
It's typically good team against good team.
That's not true.
To me,
that's not always true. You know,
Of course, it's not always true, but that is the goal. The goal is to put the good matchups in the windows when the most people are going to watch them.
So the Broncos play all year on prime time.
Because people thought the Broncos were going to be good.
People thought, but it wasn't a good team. It wasn't a good team. They weren't a good team, so we can't talk about it. My thing is, we can't make this big thing about primetime games. The big thing is the playoff games.
Okay,
that's what matters.
Well, if playoff games, he's got the same exact record as Dak.
Better than Dak, but it's comparable, right? One is 8-18 since 19. One is.
Or she's talking about in the playoffs.
In the playoffs.
Oh, in the playoffs.
They got one win.
One is 1-3.
Okay,
correct.
Yeah. So they're even in the playoffs for win losses.
Right.
So then you have to go to the regular season if you're going to continue to evaluate, right?
Well, I mean, you go to everything. You go to numbers, stats. One has better stats than another one. If that matters.
How much does that matter to
Wait, does that matter? I don't know if stats.
Does it convert to wins?
I mean, it's hard to go wins with the Washington Redskins at the time. They've always been bad. Since I've been there, since you've been there, before I was there, they've always been bad.
He's a rare quarterback to hit free agency. And I mean, I'm not going to defend the Washington football team.
Let's hear this.
No, I don't think they should have let him go.
He hit free agency and was a mega free agent. He was a centerpiece signing. They made the playoffs as a wild card team once, and they're on track. They are on track to win their division in his 4th year?
Yeah, 4th or 5th, yeah.
Is that, I mean, you talk about Dak justifying his contract. Is that what you're signing up for when you give a quarterback that amount of money? A lot of it guaranteed? Hey, come be the star of our free agent class. Be a free agent signing that's going to change the game.
First,
one wild card appearance, and now finally in your 4th year on track to win the division.
Wouldn't you say this, though? Once you find Kirk Cousins is a quarterback. He plays on offense. The Vikings finally have an offensive mind in Kevin O'Connell, and now you're seeing to some degree the offense take greater steps than when they had the defensive mind in Mike Zimmer. Wouldn't you try to equate that to when you finally give a offensive player an offensive mind, seeing what happens offensively?
I mean, yeah, and I support the hire. Well, I loved the Kevin McConnell hire. And they've put pieces around him, and it's working. But let's not act like the Vikings didn't have talent before this.
See, this is what I don't like. I don't like how a dude like Dak, when he walked into that team, they was loaded. They was set. Were they not set?
They were.
But they've turned that roster over like 3 times.
But don't you think, Dave, the most telling thing is the fact that the Cowboys, I believe, were 15-1 in their previous 16 games prior to Dak showing up with their starting quarterback. Romo was 3-1 before he got hurt in 2015.
Right. Yes,
and the Cowboys were 12-4 in 2014. So Dak Prescott went to a team that was 15-1 in their previous
with players, with linemen, with running backs, with wide receivers, with tight ends, with Hall of Famers. They were set.
Y'all are fixated on some old stuff. Like 2016 is a lifetime ago.
Agreed.
What happened after that? Like, it sounds really good to be like Dak had a Ring of Honor receiver in Dez Bryant.
That type of team just walking up there too.
Dez Bryant was off that team a year later. They cut him after the 2017 season.
Outside, though, of the 2016 season, I would argue that Dak's career is very average. But that's why I don't want to disregard it. Because outside of 13 wins and 3...
Did you say average?
Yeah, because, outside of 13 wins, outside of one of Dak's 2 Pro Bowls, outside of Dak's MVP votes, that's why I'm keeping it in to help Dak Prescott's argument. Because if you take that away, you have an 8-win season, a 10-win season, a 9-win season, and last year's 12-win season.
But if you're arguing that, how are you arguing that Kirk Cousins has not had the exact same career over the last few years that Dak has? Take out since
Washington.
Just remove Washington and compare just Minnesota.
It's very comparable. I'm with you. I think they're very different. I just take Kirk.
I would take Kirk. I think this is your preference. I would take Kirk over Dak. I mean, he throws better balls. He's more accurate. But I would say this: they're the same. Like, it could be a tie.
They're very similar. Yeah. Like, I don't want to sit here and act like I'm just like Dak occupies this different stratosphere. If Dak wants me to say that, he's got to play better than he is right now. I'm still taking Dak, though.
Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.